In this lab, you imported billing data into BigQuery that had been exported as a CSV file. You first ran a simple query on that data. Next, you accessed a shared dataset containing more than 22,000 records of billing information. You then ran a variety of queries on that data to explore how you can use BigQuery to gain insight into your resources' billing consumption. If you use BigQuery on a regular basis, you'll start to develop your own queries for searching out where resources are being consumed in your application. You can also monitor changes in resource consumption over time. This kind of analysis is an input to capacity planning and can help you determine how to scale up your application to meet growth or scale down your application for efficiency. Welcome to the walkthrough of the lab examining billing data with BigQuery. At this point in the lab, I have logged in with the username and password that QuickLabs has provided me from the lab. So the first task is to use BigQuery to import data. So what I did is, as the billing administrator, I exported my billing data and put it in a bucket. So I am going to go into BigQuery and I'm going to import some stuff. So BigQuery. Yep, I like the Cloud Console, thank you. And make sure that you are logged in to BigQuery and have the correct QuickLabs project ID selected at the top. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click Create Dataset. And I am going to call it Imported Billing Data. My data location is in the US, and I want it to expire 1 day afterwards. I'm going to hit Create Dataset, and you can see my dataset is created, and I should see it right here. There it is. So now I'm going to create a table in that dataset. Create table. For the source, I'm going to use cloud storage, and I am going to copy and paste the bucket location from the lab, and it is in CSV format. For destination, I'm using that and native table, and I am going to call it sample info table. Under schema, I am going to hit auto detect, so it detects the schema and input parameters from the dataset. I'm going to open up the advanced, and I am going to specify that I want to skip one row, because that's the headers, and then I'm going to hit create table. So this is a point where you can check the progress in your lab, and if you click check my progress, it's going to check that you have a data set and a table and that you have imported that data into that table. And you should get 5 points for that. So task 2, you're going to examine the data that you've just input. So I'm going to click on my table, and it's going to, by default, show the schema. I can click details, and it's going to tell me a little bit more information about number of rows. You can see it has 44 rows. It's a pretty small table. I can hit preview, and it's going to show me a couple of the first rows of the table. So it now wants me in the lab. There are some formative questions that are going to ask you just to make sure that you're understanding the learning. So I'm not going to go over that in the walkthrough because that is more to make sure that you're understanding what you're doing. So I'm going to go to task 3, where we're composing a simple query. And a couple of cool things about BigQuery: if you are in a table, by default, if you click query table, it's going to auto-populate the query editor with the project, dataset, table for you. And then you just specify what you want to look at. So I'm going to do select star. And I'm doing this, where cost is greater than 0. So I just want to see in this table how much of it, I only want to see the rows where the cost is more than 0. And you can see right here, It's validating that my SQL or my SQL is right. I'm going to hit run. And here are my query results. And you can see out of a table that has 44, there are 20 rows in this table that actually have costs that are more than 0. So again, there are a couple more questions that you can answer. And you can also check your progress that you've run this query. So if you ran the query, then it's going to give you another 5 points. And at this point, you're actually done with the points that are awarded in the lab, but you still have another task to go into a little more complex query. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the query from task 4, and I'm going to erase this and paste it in. And it's a valid query here, and I'm going to hit run. Then I'm going to verify that the result has what my lab is telling me is supposed to return 22,537 lines of billing data. I can see right here, that is correct. Let's say I wanted to find the latest 100 records where the charges were greater than 0. So I'm going to copy paste the query that's provided to me. Make sure it's valid. Always good to check that your SQL is valid. Hit run. And it is going to show me the last 100 records where charges were greater than 0. Let's say I wanted to find all of the charges that were more than $3. The next query shows you that. You can feel free to click through each one of these more complex queries, and feel free to try out some queries of your own if you wanted to just peruse the data and figure out maybe the last 2 days of billing, anything that was over $10. Any kind of question that you might need to provide data for to your senior leadership about your billing of resource usage in GCP. And after all of these complex queries, in review, you imported billing data that was technically exported for you from a billing admin into BigQuery, and then you ran a simple query, and then you ran some more complex queries. I hope you enjoyed the lab. Thank you.